The math is so clear and so brutal. I'm sure you've had occasion to do this where you walk the owner through and you say, okay, you had $1 of profit and you made it disappear. You put it into, yeah, that's a business expense line item. You saved how much? Let's say you saved a quarter in taxes. Okay, so you saved a quarter. Now, to your earlier comment, let's say we're 3 years later and we're selling for tax. That dollar would have gotten us 3, and we saved a quarter. The math is just brutal. It's just brutal.
Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast. We believe the purpose of business is to make lots of money. We'll show you how to scale and grow your profit and cash flow, all while working less. We're a big fan of the ELF model. Easy, lucrative, and fun. If you're the backbone of America, you deserve to be well rewarded for that. Listen in to see how other business owners are doing it and how to maximize your profit and cash flow. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Mike Finger. It's great to have you join us today.
Pleasure to be here, sir.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, about myself, I call out the fact that I'm unapologetically small business. I've been lucky enough to own 8 small businesses in my career. I've sold 4, failed twice, and still own 2. When I say unapologetically, I am very aware of the market realities for small business owners. For example, 98% of small business owners have less than 20 employees. But as you and I both know, most of the content that exists out there is around the 2%. Why? Because that's who most of the coaches and consultants and brokers and attorneys and accountants want to work with. But I try to speak to and I try to live in the 98%.
I'm with you. I try to live not necessarily in the 98%, but maybe in that second tier, below the 2%, but slightly larger small businesses. What I find is when they're really small, it's about just driving revenue. And they still haven't figured out yet what it means to drive profit and cash flow. And so I'm not trying to convert them. I'll just let them go do what they want until they get to that point. And then we can chat.
But that ride, Rocky, that early ride, man, that can be some fun stuff.
I get it. And honestly, one of the things that I talk about, but most early people aren't, they don't understand it yet. They understand it when it gets messed up later. You have to build the business model correctly to be financially successful. What I mean by that is your pricing, the market size, your local market, how you pay people, how you collect money. All of those things have to be optimized. And when you have a business plan that you understand it and you know it's doable, it becomes easy to make money.
Yep.
What I find is too often they pick too small a market, the wrong price points, they chase the wrong types of clients, all those things that cause business to be hard instead of easy. At the end of the day, business should be easy. If it's not easy and fun and lucrative, well, then you're in the wrong business. But I can't convince people of that.
Yeah, it's tough to sail the sailboat with no wind, right? Once you're going, you can tweak and optimize and find that additional 15% and do this, that, and the other. But if you're dead in the water, doesn't matter what the sails look like.
No, but what I find a lot, and I like the airplane analogy, people put a lot of passengers on their little 4-seater plane and wonder why it can't get off the ground, meaning workers, capital equipment, all that kind of stuff. They don't time it to say, hey, I need to build a business that can get off the ground, that can fly with what I have, and then as we grow, we can get bigger airplanes.
Yeah.
So it's the right sizing of the business. And all of that comes, go ahead.
I was just going to share, I've had the experience a couple times where I've been talking with a relatively new business owner, and you see the circumstance where I'm forced to ask them this question. Even if you're wildly successful at the business you're building, is it going to get you anywhere close to what your goals are for owning a business? Because too often the activity is there, the energy is there, but that understanding, to your point, that that business model has to work of itself before the success and the effort comes in. Those are tough. Those are tough. You've put 3 years in, you're pursuing this thing. Okay, let's play the hypothetical. You're wildly successful. You sell to every customer that wants this product that you can. Here's the estimated revenue. And they're like, that's all? How can that be? It's a strange game.
I'm more interested in here's the amount of cash that you can take out of the business.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot less than the revenue. Depending on the type of business, it varies dramatically. Some businesses chew up a lot of cash. They need employees or they need capital equipment or other types or marketing costs. And so it's like, hey, at that price point, it's not going to fly. Speaking of which, I know you're a big fan of systems like Profit First and EOS and others. Why are you such a big fan of systems like that?
I think it is essential for a business owner to see the operation of their business outside of themselves. And so I mentioned before we started, I am not a true believer in any of those systems. I think they all have great stuff in them. I'm one of those guys that when I was building systems for my businesses, I tended to be a bit of a Frankenstein creator. I'd take a piece from here and a piece from there and I'd put together, but it was something that worked for me, the way I viewed my business. But again, it was critical that it was the system that worked and not me. Right. And so I am a huge believer that you don't have to trust any of those systems religiously, but you better believe in something as it relates to a system to run your business, because that's the only way that you have any chance of scaling and pulling yourself away from the business enough to be able to own it instead of just work at it.
And that's a big key. No matter what you do, whether you use someone else's system or you create your own, you do have to have processes. Otherwise, you become the bottleneck, and that becomes tiring because everything has to go through you. And in your world, you become unsellable, which is the harder thing. That, if you don't want a sellable business, that's okay. But don't build something and think you're going to sell it when you're the biggest reason it won't sell.
100%. And as you know full well, ownability and sellability are next door neighbors, right? The ability to own the business in a way that doesn't suck the life out of you, that framing is where sellability comes in, right? What's the key to sellability? Are my results desirable? Can a buyer duplicate them? Can I document them? You need those three things to be able to enjoy ownership, even if you decide never to sell.
And that's the key. It becomes a fun business then.
Right. Well, I've owned both, and I don't know if you've had that experience. I have been the 80-hour-a-week, 50 employees, all in every day, all the time, not making any money. I mean, everything that can be broken about a business, I've done. And then I've owned a business that operated independently, and that was way better. That was a lot more fun. It was a lot more rewarding, both financially and professionally. Why not have that and give yourself the freedom to do either?
I'm with you. So you talk to a lot of business owners, sometimes at good times, sometimes at bad times. We're also seeing a lot of shifts in the marketplace. This is kind of a weird time because we used to go through recessions on a pretty regular basis. We haven't had one since about 08, 09, which is a very, very long time. But yet, even though we haven't had a recession, I notice certain industries are going through a recession. And there's a whole bunch of market forces out there that are disrupting the world, AI being one of the biggest that's come along. And then COVID really changed worker mentality. And I think that's turning back around, but I don't know. What do you see in that bigger macro picture?
I love the word you used, weird. I see weird, right? I will talk with owners fairly regularly. And, one of the questions is, what are you seeing in the market? And the only honest answer I can give is it depends on the business and the day, and those things are changing all the time. I have clients that are rocked by tariffs and the back and forth. I've got clients that are excited and some are terrified about AI and the impact on their industry. Is it going to decimate their industry? Are they going to have to change by 90%? And then, you take into that the demographic shifts, right? We're supposed to be, Rocky, in the middle of the silver tsunami. This is the baby boomers out there selling their business. And lo and behold, we're 2/3 of the way through that from an age out perspective, and nobody's getting wet. There's no tsunami to speak of. And I don't know why. I have theories, but the macro on that isn't materializing the way that so many in the industry said it would. So it's the forces combine to create what you called out earlier.
I didn't realize that there weren't a lot of businesses that weren't selling out as the owners got older, because I would think there are certain industries, especially blue collar industries, where the owners started decades ago and they're kind of done.
Yep.
I know most of them have the same struggle. They've got no workers or very limited workers below 45 and 50, because there was this whole long period of time that nobody went into the trades. Now it's shifting again. I think we're seeing a massive spike come back. But you're not seeing why are they not selling their business, or is this just not sellable?
I think the answer is yes to both of those things. Here's what I know. Every time I go looking for the data uptick, X many more businesses sold this year, the number of listings have tripled, blah, blah, blah. None of that materializes. And short of that, then we have to start to back and realize that the decision to sell is always an individual one. And is there a collective reason? Are they deciding to own their businesses longer? I don't know, maybe, but the data reflects no wave.
Is PE purchases, private equity, included in that number?
Rocky, who knows? There is such poor data available in this industry relative to, right? There's no Department of Business Sales that everyone has to report to that then calls out the great uptick in sales. So you can find a industry report that talks about upticks or stats, or you can go to a conglomerate of small business sales like Biz Buy Sell or something like that and see their data report. But it's fascinating if you scratch past the surface, because you will find that some of those reports, and I'm not naming them in particular, but most of those reports will be based on 3,000 transactions. And there's 33 million small businesses in the US. And so they'll call out a 20% uptick in sales, and that means that 3,000 went to 3,600. Well, can you extrapolate from that out? I don't think so. Because again, what we've been promised for the last 10 years, the last 20 years about the silver tsunami has not materialized. Will it? I don't know. But the opportunity to buy, it's still a challenging environment.
That's interesting, because I know certain industries, like the medical industry, used to be your doctor ran their own private practice. What I've seen over the last Well, it's been longer. It's been 30 years. The private practice disappeared. They all got bought up. They're gone. So there's no more to sell. Right now, it's happening in the accounting industry. Accounting is getting sold left and right. People don't even realize it. So I know it's happening in that industry. It seems certain industries get hot and certain ones don't. But yeah, I don't know outside of those kind of what's going on. I don't see the data, so I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the private equity transaction count data that's put out, and we all hear these stories about I bought, this firm bought 17, this we bought twice as many, but in the collective private equity transactions, 10,000 a year overall, 33 million small businesses. And most of those 10,000, mid-market and lower middle market. They're not in the 98% space. And so again, all of this for me comes back to the simple realities of this space. And that is, if you are an owner that intentionally spends time on this topic area, before you reach, I got to get out of here, right? I need to sell tomorrow. Before that brick hits you in the head, if you are somebody who has been somewhat thoughtful and intentional about preparing your business for sale, your ability to have a successful outcome dramatically increases. If you think it's just going to happen, your odds are minuscule.
Well, and so that's the one thing, because I know a lot of people in the space, and a lot of business owners, I think, look at their business as a retirement plan. It's very rare for me to see a business owner remove money from their company, even load up in Ks to a great extent, even beyond that, to just take cash and go invest in the stock market or some other asset class. Real estate, mediocre. They tend to buy their own real estate versus beyond that. But the thing I think they don't understand is, in order to sell a business, you have to have, where we started, systems and processes. And you have to have good, clean books, not books that showed you used the business as a piggy bank, which means you also have to have good and profitable tax returns, which means you have to pay taxes, not optimize for no taxes, because then you're stuck on the other end of that.
Right.
So can you kind of address all of that? Like, what should they be thinking about, and how far in advance?
For me, you've got people in the start with the end in mind camp. And I think that's a great theory. That has not been my life experience of business ownership. For me, I've started and I have sprinted, crawled, fought my way to sustainability. Once you reach sustainability, now let's have the conversation about sellability and success. But if you're still in survival mode, we were talking profit first, and I recently had contact with a small business owner, very excited about profit first, not making any profit. And so you can put that system, you can put that cookie cutter down on the counter, but if there's not dough there, you're not cutting any cookies, right? So for me, I tend to try to approach this as simple as I possibly can. And here's the thing, Rocky, they have to ask the question. They have to ask the question, will I be able to sell my small business? They have to not assume, not put it off, not think they know the answer. They have to honestly ask the question, will I be able to sell my small business? Because you and I know that most small business owners that we work with are problem solvers. They're engaged. They're able to tackle, or put out fire after fire after fire. The biggest problem with this topic is that they either don't know it exists or they ignore it because they have some other assumption in place. So we'll talk about the dominoes that fall after, but if for any owners listening, what I would call out and would cheerlead for all day long is start by asking the question. Because we now live in a world where the data is out there. We've got the ability to dig past the surface if we're honestly asking the question. So I don't know if that resonates for you, what you see with the owners that you deal with as it relates to this topic.
So some of my owners are looking to sell at some point. What happens more often than not is I run the numbers for them and I look at their lifestyle and I look at what the business generates and I go, if you sell the business, and I'm assuming for most of them, it's a 3 or 4 multiple, not these crazy numbers that you hear out there.
2.5 is the national average.
Okay. I tell them, if you get a 3 or 4 multiple, this is how much you're going to get for your business. And then I say, with that much money, here's what your retirement income looks like. I go, are you going to be able to live on that? And invariably they look at me and go, no. And I go, well, then we need to optimize the business better. And understand something though. This is people who are making a few $100,000 a year in their business. I'm not talking about people who aren't paying themselves well.
Yep.
It's just that if you've got a business paying you $400,000 a year, a 3 or 4 multiple is what? 900, 1.2 million? 1.2 million in a retirement account. If you see a financial planner, they'll be like, yeah, you can get 50 grand a year on that. I'm like, what? I was making 400 grand and now I'm going to get 50. So what I'll tell those business owners is let's put a manager in place. Let's put somebody in to operate it, because you could probably pay them 150, keep 250, and you would be ahead of the game. So why sell the golden goose? And again, it's situation specific. But
yes, it is.
That is kind of the way I look. What we do for every conversation is let's run the numbers. Well, profit first doesn't work. I tried it. Well, no, profit first works. You're just not profitable. Let's run the numbers and figure out why. If you want to sell your business, let's run the numbers and see what you're going to get and see if that makes sense for you. And I think when you run the numbers, it gives you clarity on, hey, yeah, that's reasonable. That's unreasonable. If somebody's crazy enough to pay me that kind of money, yeah, I'm going to take it. And I agree. So there's no perfect answer.
Yeah, and the numbers are interesting things, right? Because as you're talking through that scenario, you call out that they're making $300,000 or $400,000 a year, and that that million in the bank is only going to produce 50,000, and both those numbers are accurate, but are they paying taxes on that $300,000 or $400,000 a year? What are they actually taking home from it? And are they buying the $80,000 pickup truck because they don't want to pay 16 grand for in taxes for that money? And what is actually happening there? And this brings it all back to a question that has just been shoved in my face the last couple of weeks with some of the owners, in good ways and bad ways. And that is the question, what do you want? Do you want to keep working in the business? Because if you do, let's figure out how to make it as easy as possible for you. Do you want financial freedom? Okay, what is that number? What's the translation of financial freedom into math for you? Because I've worked with owners that only needed 1.2 million to reach financial freedom. And then I've got owners that want 15 million. And I don't think either one of those questions is more right or wrong, as long as you know the answer to the question, what do you want?
And I agree with you. And I think that's part of what we work on, because my goal for business owners is to help them build wealth. And in order to do that, part of what has to happen is we have to get them to actually make money and keep the money. So we're always working on that and trying to figure out how to do that and extract, instead of buying the truck, extracting the money and putting it in a 401k, because you get the same tax deduction with a
Right.
401k. So why not do that and keep the money and get the tax deduction and build towards your retirement, so that even if the business is unsellable, you at least are making your money. You've already saved it because the business has been building that nest egg for you.
Right. I read a survey years ago that said that somewhere around 79% of owners were counting on the sale of their business to fund their retirement, and less than 20% of them will ever sell successfully. That's a pretty big gap. And to your point, if you're not preparing along the way, I mean, we own small businesses, the riskiest asset class possible, with the possible exception of crypto, maybe these days. Small businesses fail all the time, completely out of the control of owners. Sometimes they make mistakes that mess them up. Sometimes market forces come into play. All sorts of things can happen. And again, the irony here is that sellability and ownability remain the same thing. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow unless you're taking gold along the way, right? That's how you ensure that sellability. To your point, it's taking money out of the business and being able to show to that potential buyer, hey, look, this is my income 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So it's reasonable to assume next year that will be your income. That's why I'm asking you to pay me X.
That's one of the reasons I love Profit First. Because with Profit First, when you have the bank accounts and you're pulling the profit out and you're putting it aside and you're removing it from the company,
Yep.
A, you built that habit, and B, it's provable. You can go, hey, here are my bank
That's right.
statements. This is my profit account. See how I keep taking this money out and see
Yep.
how it never comes back in. So I did it. You can do it. Hence, it makes you more valuable. But
If
you
you
are
follow
correct.
that system, you get 2 yeses to 3 of those key questions, right? You've got desirable results and you can document them. You are well on your way. It's again, and that's why as we talked about systems versus just doing your own thing, I deal with owners all the time that have good businesses. If you scrape away all of the stuff that they've piled on top, and you can see it, but you can't prove it.
So we actually do something about that. In my world, that's called, yeah, that's a business expense. And so we create a line on the P&L that is basically called, yeah, that's a business expense. Now, it's not going to say that, right? But it's going to say that. That what that really does for the owner is it's like, hey, just in case you're wondering, here's where you've been wasting money.
Yeah.
And you can see it. And now you can decide if that's reasonable or unreasonable, what you're doing. The
Right.
second line item that we usually will do, and it depends on the owner. If they're in the trades, I might have a tool line because they have a tool fetish. You know, if somebody's a photographer, they have a camera fetish. Somebody else has got whatever else. I'm like,
Yep.
we want to know the fetish line, and we want to know the I'm burying this in my business line.
Yep.
Because when you see that, you realize how good or bad your business is doing. And B, if you know that you're going to sell in a few years, we can clean that up.
Yeah.
We know what we have to do. We know exactly where to look. You know what else is funny, though? And this one's a real hurt. You got that person in your business, maybe their family, maybe you're doing someone a favor, you're paying them 80 grand a year, and they're basically doing nothing in your business.
Yep.
You go to sell at a 3x multiple, that just cost you $250,000.
Oh, it's brutal. The math is so clear, and so brutal. I'm sure you've had occasion to do this where you walk the owner through and you say, okay, you had $1 of profit and you made it disappear, right? You put it into, yeah, that's a business expense line item. You saved how much? You saved, let's say you saved a quarter in taxes. Okay, so you saved a quarter. Now, to your earlier comment, let's say we're 3 years later and we're selling for tax. That dollar would have gotten us 3 and we saved a quarter. The math is just brutal. It's just brutal. And I've had occasion to talk owners through that because, again, I'm not the guy that tells them what to do. I am the guy that says, let's make informed choices, right? If you hate taxes so much that you would rather do X than Y, that's your choice. Let's count the cost of that. Let's make sure you understand what you're actually doing.
And this is why I really struggle to understand why they won't put it into a retirement plan or some sort of tax advantage plan.
Right.
But if they don't listen to me, I just show them option B. I'm like, just give me the money. You'll get a tax deduction. And I'll take you out for a wonderful dinner and buy really fancy wine. And they're like, that's stupid. I go, yeah, I know. Do you get it now?
Right. It's, yeah. If only I wasn't sitting here knowing that in my first business, I made some of these same mistakes, right?
I've come to find there are 2 types of business owners. And at some point, there's an aha. The first type of business owner, I got to drive revenue. I'm just going to drive revenue. I keep driving revenue because revenue will solve all my problems and give me money.
Yep.
And then there's the second type of business owner who goes, I need to drive profit and cash flow and the ability to remove money from this company. And at some point, that first owner gets the aha that more revenue isn't going to solve the problem. And the problem is, it might be at 1 million. Some of them, it's at 10 million. I see some of them close to 20 million. They still haven't gotten the message yet. And it's like, you got to wake up.
Yeah. They did what I did. They read the article that said, you can sell your business for 2x revenue. Hey, I got it to 5 million. This place is worth 10 million. I'm on Easy Street.
It might not be worth anything.
Thus, that is what I discovered. Again, the important thing about this, from my perspective, as an owner, is that you understand that this is a journey, right? You don't start your first business. You don't start in a business and know everything. But if you're humble, willing to ask questions, and open to changing how you do things so that you end up getting more of what you're looking to get from your business, then the sky's the limit in terms of change and opportunity and what you can create. If you're head down, this is what I do, you better have gotten lucky and be doing it right at the start. And you and I both know how rare that is.
No, that's really true. And that's what I try and help them see is we get 2 choices. And I'm also confused about this one. A lot of people like to make their own mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to read and find the mistakes other people made so I don't have to make them. And for whatever reason, that's just not the norm.
Yeah. Rocky, I believe what you just said. And then I think about the mistakes that I made. And I didn't make them necessarily because I didn't research or didn't read or didn't listen. Sometimes I made them for all the right reasons. How do you take an owner through that self-discovery? How do you take an owner to the place where they're able to ask those honest questions about whether their business is giving them what they want?
So we do a couple things. My onboarding call with a client is 2 hours. We don't talk about the financials. We talk about them as a person. How did you get here? What are the behaviors you learned as a child that are still running in the background today, especially with money? What do you want from your business? And what are the things that I can help them with? And so I also look at, hey,
I'm sorry, before you go on, how many of them know the answer to the what do you want from your business question?
A lot of them have the classic, the classic type of thing. I want to work less and make more and support my family and do the right things. So they have those goals, but they're not living them
Sure.
necessarily. So there's an alignment issue. And that's why we ask them. Because if they tell me X and then they come to me with some harebrained idea, I'm like, you told me you wanted X. Is this taking us to X? No, it's taking us to A. That's not the direction you told me to go. So let's not explore that. And that's a big part of the onboarding, is to understand them, to understand where they are health wise, relationship wise, spiritually, everything else. Like, is their life a circle, or is it like this jagged thing that is going to constantly show up in the business? Because to me, entrepreneurship is a self-development journey. Your business is only going to go as far as you as the owner are self-developed, and it's
Yeah.
going to keep hitting your ceilings. And so that's what we do, and that's how we do it.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating conversation because I've had all over the board, right? Owners who were dissatisfied because they weren't at this revenue level or this profit level. Owners who were very satisfied, not recognizing what was there. I love that part of the conversation because I've also had those occasions where the process of defining the what I want helps them realize they already have a lot. And that to me is always a pretty cool alignment.
Yeah, usually people come to me because they're on fire. It's a
Interesting.
different, that we're trying to get them to come a little earlier, and we do. But a lot of people, and I've asked the question, it's like, why does this happen? It's like, well, until people hit rock bottom, they don't want to change.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, if that's what I have to deal with, that's what I have to deal with. The smart ones will do it beforehand. I'll try and reach them.
Yeah, and also appreciating that so few of us as owners have had these kinds of conversations with anyone before, right? I will go through that exercise. We'll talk about the exit goal, right? What do you want to exit your business for? Well, $1 million, $10 million, whatever the number is. I always then go, why? What does life look like with that number? And if the goal is 5 million, what does life look like at 4.5? Is it that different? What about 4? Right? And we look to find that place where this is what I want my life to look like. This is the exit that I need to have to do that. And this is what the business needs to look like to give me that exit. Let's walk that path. Let's build that business. And if it, to your earlier point, if it's a sale, if it's hire someone to run it for you, there's a lot of different ways to exit a business.
There are. And that requires you sit down and think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask that question.
Ask the questions and pressure test them. And then and only then will you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
If people would like to learn more about you and your services, how do they find you?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn, but you can certainly find me at exitoasis.com as well. Come find me on LinkedIn. Let's talk about small businesses.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us.
True pleasure, Rocky. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you'd like to catch the full episode and learn more about what we do, check us out at profitcomesfirst.com. We also go through the Profit First book in each and every chapter in the beginning episodes of the podcast, so check those out as well. Thanks for listening, and here's to you having a more profitable and growing business.